There's an old idea called the sophomore slump that says second efforts generally aren't as good as the first. Sophomore students stop trying as hard, bands get less time with their second album than their first, and athletes who have exceptional rookie years regress to the mean. There's no denying the power of new car smell, and part of the reason College Football 25 popped off as hard as it did was because it had been more than a decade since NCAA 14. It didn't hurt that it was good, but the annual fatigue of the sports genre hadn't set in yet. College Football 26 doesn't benefit from new car smell anymore, but it's not a game suffering from the sophomore slump either. This season is better than last year's, just in a way that's more focused on steady improvement than breakout success. Here's the secret, y'all. Once a sports series solves the gameplay, it's never really gonna be bad. College Football 26 is built on a really firm foundation, and this year's iteration expands on that in good ways. One of the things I appreciate most was the trophy room, which tracks the real-world trophies you'll accumulate across your entire career, no matter what mode you're in. It's cool to see stuff like the Heisman Trophy, the Unitas Golden Arm Award, and the Orange Bowl Trophy collected in one place, and be able to learn about them too. There's a lot of history to college football, and I appreciate that EA has tried to capture that. Aside from the addition of the trophy room, though, there are no new modes in College Football 26. The options are the exact same as last year. You've got Play Now, Road to the College Football Playoffs, the custom character-led Road to Glory, the flagship Dynasty mode, practice and minigames, and finally College Ultimate Team, which is, as I put it last year, a slot machine masquerading as a trading card game that will almost assuredly make EA hundreds of millions of dollars and eventually earn the ire of the community as it gets more updates per year than every other mode combined. I was hoping College Football 26 would move its tutorials out of Ultimate Team, but no such luck. This is still both a bad way to teach people how to play and a deeply cynical move on EA's part, since there's once again no reason for them to be housed here beyond luring people towards spending money on card packs.
The throw can't make the connection, and the defense putting on the heat.
The college football team has at least made some really nice quality of life updates to Ultimate Team. One is the Pack Helper, which will immediately tell you if a player is better than someone in your current lineup and let you equip them on the spot. The other major one is that you can now see your challenges from the play call screen and bring them up at any time pre-snap. No more pausing required. These, as well as some other changes, are very nice tweaks. That said, I fundamentally believe deep in my soul that these modes are predatory. They are designed to trigger the dopamine-producing part of your brains that gambling stimulates in the hope that you will continue to spend money for a chance at a good outcome, and I cannot endorse anything about them. The mode that has seen the most meaningful changes is Road to Glory, where you'll create a player and begin your college journey. Notably, you can now kind of play through your high school career, which determines how colleges view you. You might think you'd play full high school games, but the reality is you'll select up to 4 of 5 possible goals and play through drives based around them. That could mean throwing a play-action pass while avoiding a ball-hawking safety, leading your team on a late drive to win the game, or converting an important third down. How well you do will determine what you put on tape, which is how colleges will evaluate you. Each school has its own criteria and is looking for different things in its players, so some will jive with certain goals and player archetypes more than others. Navy is probably more interested in the mobile QB who can run the option than a pocket passer and will evaluate you accordingly, while a school that runs a pro-style offense probably wants a cat who can sling it. It's a big improvement over last year, even if I wish we were playing full games. I also like that you get a limited number of retries depending on your difficulty, and that teams will give you special challenges you can undertake to improve your tape score with them, or tell you that they're just not that into you. I made my very own Joe Throw a 2-star recruit this year, so my path was more difficult. I essentially had to play perfectly to get an offer from my preferred school, Virginia, but I liked the challenge. I also like the little touches EA has added. Senior night, how the camera trails your player during runouts, and a hat ceremony where you can fake people out. I started off as a third-string QB once I made it to college, but it wasn't long before Joe was in a position battle for the backup spot. He was soon promoted to starter.
Off the play fake. It's complete!
Otherwise, stuff is more or less the same as last year, and the same problems persist. It takes too long to get access to things like audibles and hot routes. Your coach will make boneheaded play calls with limited options for you to change them, and they'll blame you for stalled drives when your receivers drop the ball or your running back gets stuffed. You know, things that are not your fault, reducing his trust in you. Some of these restrictions don't even make sense. Why am I allowed to call timeouts and not audibles?
Looking to throw for it. Grabbed over the middle. It's Conley.
Outside of the games, Road to Glory is largely the same. You'll manage your time between studying, resting, upping your leadership skills, training, and managing your brand. There are occasional extras like NIL deals and the opportunity to study for or cheat on tests, and so on. All of which mostly boil down to text exchanges that offer their own risks and rewards. You now have to manage coach happiness and career health, which are good additions if still a little easy to deal with. Joe Throw is once again almighty, and Road to Glory is still the same as it was. Solid, but not great. Dynasty is where most people will spend their time, and it's got the same highs and lows as it did last year, though there are some great upgrades. Over 300 real-world coaches are in College Football 26, complete with their own playbooks, tendencies, and skills. Custom coaches have more customization options, from their clothing to how they behave on the sidelines. And they all now have a level cap of up to 100 from College Football 25's 50. There have also been an enormous number of quality of life changes here, like how bringing in a player close to your school costs fewer recruiting hours than flying someone in from across the country, and that you can always see your team needs when you're still on the recruiting menu because they're now pinned to the top of the page. Oh, and now every player has a deal breaker, some of which change over time. So there's more players in the transfer portal at the end of any given year, and how much they progress between seasons is based on how good your school's training facilities are. Better still, you'll finally level them up manually. It's great stuff, and I saw how much harder it was to recruit at a school like UConn than Boise State. However, many of Dynasty's improvements are largely still under the hood. This is the same engine and the same car, and you'll have to love the act of recruiting, leveling up your coach, and playing games because beyond that, there isn't much else to do. Dynasty is still good, but it's very much more of the same, just better. If you liked it last year, you'll like it this year. If, like me, you wish there was more to do, that hasn't changed.
Makes a connection.
I'm trying to stick with my online Dynasty longer than I did last year, but it still doesn't compel me the way franchise does in Madden.
To the air on first down. He's got it on the move. Touchdown, Cavaliers!
The best changes to College Football 26 overall might be the on-field tweaks. The little change I'm happiest about is how defenders play the ball when it's in the air. If you've played College Football 25 or Madden in the last few years, you've probably noticed defenders intercepting passes that they couldn't have seen without turning around. Now, a defender has to see the ball to pick it off, and you'll notice defenders turning their heads before the ball arrives. If they don't, however, that doesn't mean the defender can't make a play on the ball. They can still swat it. It's a good change. You now actually have a reason to swat the ball down instead of going for the pick every time, and better defenders can now make plays that average ones can't. I'm also a big fan of dynamic subs and custom zones for defenders. The former allows you to swap players on the field and not just on the play call screen, thank God. Though you do have to wait a play for the substitution to take effect, and the latter is the defensive version of last year's custom stems for routes on offense. I enjoyed the defensive game more than the offensive one, so being able to set where I want my zones to be on the field in real time and not a menu is welcome. Maybe one day we'll get to the point where players are running on and off the field in real time. That would be neat, but this is a good first step toward that hopefully possible future.
Touchdown, Broncos!
College Football 26 is a very good college football video game, but I don't think it's a great one. I'm pretty choosy when I use that word. This year's version walks a little taller, looks a little more toned, and has better footwork than last year's model. You can tell it's put in the work in the off-season, but there's still more to be done. Proper teaching tools aren't here yet, and Road to Glory and Dynasty still need meaningful changes. But Dynasty is at least compelling enough, and the on-field game still has it where it counts. You can tell the college football team is listening, and that it cares. EA has avoided the sophomore slump, but like any college football fan will tell you, you don't build a dynasty off a couple of good seasons alone. You have to plan for the future. College Football 26 is a step in that direction, but EA will have to keep at it if they want this series to be up there with the all-time greats.
He is feeling it. A huge play. Almost took it to the house, but they got him at the 24.
Executive Reviews Editor Tom Marks here with Will Borger, our reviewer for College Football 26. Will also reviewed Madden 25 and College Football 25 when it first debuted last year, so no stranger to the genre, to the football genre, but also you might have seen Will a bunch of different places. You jump all over the place in terms of genre. You did our review of The Midnight Walk. You are an action game aficionado reviewing Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, beat 'em up superstar, as I've been told. you played did the Power Rangers game. Probably some more coming up for that genre as well. But let's talk about football right now and football games. To start, what are some of your favorite football games, kind of overall, but then also what do you look for in the genre? What makes a game in this genre sing to you?
For me, a football game has to get the on-the-field stuff right, and it also has to get the team management stuff right. So for me, with football games, I started with like NFL Blitz, the more arcade-focused stuff, and I came to Madden and NFL 2K a lot later, and then continued with like stuff like Blitz the League and kind of weird off-the-wall stuff with Backbreaker. So my history with the genre goes back from like the arcadey stuff to the really simulated stuff, and a football game to be successful has to get feel right more than almost anything else. And it's one of those things that's hard to describe to someone, but you know it when it feels right, and you'll immediately know when it doesn't. Which is why reviewing college football and Madden within a month of each other is really interesting, because they feel usually completely different from one another.
Dig into that a little bit, because I am interested. Like, that was one of the first things. I'm not really a football game fan, to be frank, right? I just don't play the genre, but. So it surprised me that college football and Madden could sort of live alongside each other. So what do you see as the important distinctions between those two games? What do you think that college football needs to do right that Madden can kind of not do or gets away with not doing?
So, I mean, functionally right now, they feel very different, and this is going to change in Madden 26. But college football is faster. It's a little more arcadey feeling. The players are more responsive. You're more likely to get big plays just because of things like that. Even the way that your team comes to the line is different. The animations that get you there are different. How much time it takes to come to the line in something out of the hurry up. In Madden, you're going to see a lot more pro-style playbooks, which are a lot more varied, a lot more diverse. And in college, your team is really going to be focused on, this is what we do it really well, and the team is going to be built to do that thing. Whereas in Madden, you kind of have, teams that are professional players. They do everything. So just the act of stepping onto the field and figuring out, like, all right, what does my team do is different, and what do I do with the limited options that I have?
So you mentioned this distinction of coming in from the sort of the arcadey side of things and then moving into the sim side of things. If you had to choose, if you could only ever play one style or the other going forward, do you think you would lean arcadey or heavy sim?
It's tough because there's not really a lot of arcadey football games left. Even college football, even though it feels more arcadey than Madden does, is not an arcade game in the same way that Blitz was, or something like Backbreaker is. Like, it's very different. So it's hard to know what a modern arcade game would feel like in football, aside from like a few very specific examples. So I guess I would say the sim aspect, because I do really like the, tinkering with your team and upgrading your guys and managing, your recruiting in college football, your salary cap in Madden. Like, those things to me are interesting.
All right, let's talk about the thing that sort of hovers around the conversation of any annual sports series, no matter what sport we're talking about, which is this idea of, is it making enough changes? Is it just an iterative upgrade? Is it the same thing again?
It's tricky because it depends on how good the sports game in question is, right? Like, if the game isn't very good, you want to complete ground up. Like, I wanted to see something else from this. If it's good, you're like, why mess with the thing that works, right? And it's one of the tricky things about football games, especially, is people, especially with like Madden having been the only game in town for so long, people were like, oh, it's the same game every year, and it's like, well, it's similar, but the distinctions are really subtle. Like, one of the big things in college this year that I talked about in the review was being able to substitute on the field and not having to do it from a menu. Just going into a menu on the field and saying, all right, well, I want my second string quarterback here because I'm going to run an option. He's better at that. I want him on the field for this play. The thing with these games is sometimes they'll introduce mechanics or they'll introduce a new system, and then it will just stay that way for years and it won't get iterated on at all. And that's great when the thing works really well, but a lot of times, like, things come out and people don't like whatever it is, and then it just stays that way until they figure out a new rework of that system.
Yeah, one of the hardest things to balance, I feel like, with annual games like this, too, when reviewing them, is also this idea that you have to look at what came before and take that into account, and you also have to just look at what it is on its surface, right? Because this is going to be somebody's first college football game or football game in general, and they're not going to know the history of Madden and college football 25 before it or 24 before it. You have to be balancing that, right? Those considerations of how has this made changes, and then also what about the people who don't know any of that and don't care about any of that and are just coming in fresh?
Every game is somebody's first game in a genre or a sports game or whatever it is, right? Whether it's a shooter or an action game or a sports game or whatever. And it's weird with annualized releases because you do need somebody who's played the last few and maybe can go back 5 or 6 or 7 years, even 20 years in some cases with these games that have been running so long, and be like, okay, this thing that they're saying is new recently, but we actually had this in like NFL 2K25 or 2K5, right? It's really complicated because a lot of the stuff is so in the weeds, and you don't want to overload a review with like, look at all this new stuff that's here, where most players won't even notice or may not care or are not there for that mode, right? But you have to convey that, like, yes, stuff has changed. So it's a difficult line to walk, and I'm sure for the developers over at EA and any other sports game studio, it's very difficult to impress upon people like, hey, this is what's new, because so much of it requires knowing what's already there.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know you're in the middle of a move, thus the boxes behind you. If you want more from Will, you can check out his review of Mecha Break, which is, again, a totally different genre shooter. You are also, not this is an arena shooter, but an arena shooter head as well. So, I feel like you have some pretty good different pillars that you jump between. And then also, if you want another different great game, we just gave our first 10 in over a year, which is Donkey Kong Bonanza. So you can check out the full review of that, along with a chat with Logan Plant, the reviewer, over there. And for everything else, keep it right here on IGN.